Hello, and welcome back to the Single Malt Frontier, where we explore the edge of innovation in American single malt whiskey. Here on the show, we do a little bit of tasting and a lot of talking. Usually we talk about whiskey, but the best thing about whiskey is the conversations that we get to have, and we get to talking about a little bit of everything. I'm your host, Doug, or as I'm known around the internet, Demi Tastes. I'm joined today, as usual, by my co-host, Phill, who will actually be taking point today, since right now we're in the middle of the Virginia Whiskey Tournament run by Phill. So, Phill, over to you.
This is the third year that I've run the Virginia Whiskey Tournament. It is run on Twitter and on Instagram. It is to the people to vote for who moves on to the next round and ultimately becomes the 2024 Virginia Whiskey champion. Last year it was Catoctin Creek, and the year before that it was the Falls Church Distillers Company. And maybe this year I will be able to deliver that trophy to our guest today, Rick Wasmund, founder, CEO, and master distiller at Copper Fox Distillery.
Hi, guys. Hey, were we in the contest last year?
Yes.
Oh, man. It wasn't a single malt contest.
No, it is just distilleries within the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Okay, got it. So...
Yeah. Before we go any further, I just want to real quick. So as usual, this podcast we run out of our own pockets, but one of the best ways that you can support us is to buy Phil's Etsy shop pens. He's got pens and bowls. And we're going to keep this brief today because this is going to be a brief interview. You've heard the spiel before. The links are in the comments or the description rather. And let's move on.
But basically everyone should have a pen and a bowl.
Yeah, absolutely. They're made with barrel staves. Sorry, buried the lead on that one. For anyone who's watching for the first time, these are made with whiskey barrel staves, which is awesome.
God, I gotta have one. All right.
So, as I introduced, you founded Copper Fox Distillery. Would you like to give sort of an introduction to the audience who may not have heard of Copper Fox?
Yeah, sure. And first of all, thank you both for having me on and including me in the discussion. So for those of you, again, my name is Rick Wasmund, and I'm a guy that had an idea back about 24 years ago. And the idea was kind of centered around the idea that we would malt our own barley and introduce the whiskey world to some different smokes. I grew up in Western New York, moved to Virginia. I always had a abnormal love for the aromatic qualities of wood, and especially fruit wood. Did a lot of cooking with applewood and peachwood, cherry wood, and somewhere around 1999, I was at a Johnny Walker tasting, and I was kind of an equal opportunity bourbon Scotch whiskey drinker. And I was sitting at, the guys at Johnny Walker, I mean, the marketing guys are just pros, but, there was a guy in the kilt, and he was waxing poetic about the peat smoke. And I could taste it in the whiskey, but I just had the kind of random thought pass through my head. Oh, wouldn't it be nice to have a whiskey that was made with fruitwood smoke rather than peat? And kind of stuck in my head enough to go to the liquor store and ask for something that was made that way, that represented that type of quality, and began to learn, this is 1999, that there was, in the whole whiskey world at that time, it was either peat smoke, and of course peat had its variations, but it was either peat smoke or no smoke. And of all the bourbons, I mean, malted barley is a component of bourbon. I mean, almost all the big brands, they're not just using enzymes, they're using malt, but nobody was introducing any flavor element of smoke in the malt in any of the whiskeys. I just kind of couldn't really believe it. And so I said, well, there's no way I could open up a distillery. And I started noodling around some business plans, and I said, well, maybe I could. And so this was in the beginning of the craft uh, distilling movement, or the small distillers movement. But there was no distilleries in North America that were malting their own barley. So I trundled off to Scotland and ran into Jim McEwen at Beaumont and told him what I was thinking about doing. And Jim said, "Wow, lad, that's a great idea. You got to do it." And I said, "Okay." "What did you say?" "You got to do it." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to do it." So anyway, they gave me an internship. I went back to Scotland and learned how they smoked the malt with the peat. And it didn't seem that impossible. And I came back to Virginia and a couple of trials and errors, but eventually reconstructed a small kiln and malting operation pattern. It was just a mini version of what I ran at Beaumont, or what I worked at Beaumont. And we started from the beginning making Copper Fox whiskey. And from the beginning, we've malted 100% of our own barley. We've never bought malt from anyone. We got a strain of barley that Virginia Tech had been working on. And we were the first people to malt it for beverage alcohol. And we've been going since then. And we started with applewood cherrywood smoke. We moved on to peachwood. We do a single malt rye with sassafras smoke. And then I can start talking about the aging, but that's kind of what got us started on the path. So when we started, there was, I think, McCarthy's was buying Scottish malt in, was it Oregon? And Fritz Maytag was making single malt rye, the old Potrero. But those were the only single malts made in the United States when we started. But, we did the barley with the fruitwood smoke. Fritz wasn't really smoking his single malt rye. It was, I thought, a great product. I think the McCarthy's was great, but he was importing Scottish malt. And so he wasn't doing anything different. And he had a great product, but it tasted like really good Scotch. So I wanted to make something different. I wanted to introduce the whiskey world to something different. And I think we've succeeded in that.
In the time since you started, malting at your facility, the first in the United States to do that, and other people have, or other companies have started doing that themselves, have you had a hand in helping other distilleries with teething troubles with malting?
Oh, thanks for asking that. I've been in contact. I think the people that I know, Hill Rock and Leopold Brothers, we did an internship for the Riverbend Malt guys. So they came up, but they're not a distillery. They're a malting operation. They're down in Asheville. Great guys. The Corsair guys, we were in touch and I saw what they were doing, but they didn't really ask me, and they're doing something a little bit different than I would do. But I understand the reasons they went to it. So we have, other than that, those are the only people that we've really helped out. I guess people have come. I mean, we've given a lot of tours. There's been a lot of people come through our place that have started distilleries. And I don't always know how it ends up or how we've helped, but occasionally I get a thank you and such.
So the next question, you're malting your own barley. You're using the unconventional fruitwood smoke to do so. When you are then aging it, because over time the compounds in the whiskey that create the smoke flavor that everybody loves do sort of absorb into the barrels and mellow out over time. Did you find that your innovative aging process helped to mitigate some of that flavor or the smoke flavor loss?
Well, with that, I would humbly ask you to try the Wasmunds. If you have a glass handy, can I?
Yes.
Unfortunately, I'm out of my element. I'm here, so I'm forced to drink a port rye, and any port in a storm, right, guys? All right. So, so I don't even have a single malt on vacation with me, but and it could be that we drank it all last night, but anyway, so that, well, there you go. So when you talk about the aging, there's really the two things, and I touched on the malting, the fact that we malt our own barley, we introduced the whiskey world with these different smokes, but the other really, I guess, semi-radical thing that we started right from the beginning was aging our whiskey with an infusion of toasted, the same fruit wood that we use for smoking the malt. We do kind of a custom hand toasted fruit wood infusion in the barrel. So we cut a trap door on the top of the barrel, make these cheesecloth bags about the size of volleyballs, just whatever can fit through that trap door. The trap door is a standard size, like a 8.5 by 11, like sheet of paper, because whenever we need to trace and cut and make that standard hole, that's what we grab a sheet of paper, and that is how we standardize. So we make bags that are big enough to fit through that hole and go in the barrel, and then we started using these multiple generations, and it's very difficult to pick out. Now, I have the benefit of being able to try the spirit, but when you try the finished product, it's very difficult to distinguish the smoke on the malt versus the toasted wood infusion. But it's kind of different, and it's delicious.
And we have I guess, a clarification or a request for additional information from chat, specifically with respect to guayacol. On that question, we like to get nerdy here. If you have any comments on the chemistry, we'd love to hear them.
So, what was the question?
Oh, with respect to Phil's question, this was further. I guess, could you elaborate with respect to guayacol, like that sort of smoke flavor molecule, with regards to the smoke in the barley versus the toasted barrel?
I am. Maybe I should be ashamed, but I'm not. I don't know what you're talking about.
Totally fine. Sorry, we'll cut that in post. Okay, I had a question that I just sort of, maybe we're going to probably go in a random order, but I wanted to ask if you had tried any hardwood smokes that did not do good things for the whiskey.
Yes, indeed we have. And look, I don't mean to be a jerk about it, but we've tried a lot of things, and I may not be as scientific, but we're eminently practical on what we do. So there's things that I like and things that I don't like. The clear winners, and so what I don't want to do is go through our entire body of work and give it away on this podcast. But what I can say is, for the smoking, this is just a for instance, I like the cherry, but if you taste the whiskey, and maybe you guys can have a sip of it, there's an astringency in there that's coming, and I can tell you that's coming from the cherry wood. It's a little bit dry, and what I found is that level of dryness or astringency was good for me as a smoke, but not good in the aging process. You know what I'm saying? It was too
Mhm.
much.
Yeah.
It was bitter, and I didn't think the market would like it, and I didn't really care for it. So the permutations that are out there, not only with different species of woods, but it gets into it, and I'm sorry, the people are really looking for the science, and maybe I don't have the terminology, but we've got the depth of experience. An applewood is not a generic. It's not a constant. So it's the hearts of the tree versus the smaller branches, green wood versus aged wood. If it's aged wood, how many years? But wood has flavor characteristics that change over the course of the seasoning. And just as people will pay a premium for air dried oak that's 6 months, or that's a year versus 6 months or 2 or 3 years, the winemakers and stuff, all species of wood go through that change. And there, you have to start with the quality, from the beginning. And the quality that might be great for the aging may not be the same for the smoke. When I first really got tuned in to the smoke was before I started making whiskey. I was cleaning up a field, and someone had made a pile of cherry wood that they never got around to burning. So basically it was a big pile of decomposed, cherry wood, but it was not in the wood form. It was in the almost cherry wood peat. But I built a fire over it, and that underlying old pile of rotted wood caught fire, and the aroma coming from that. I was also testing to make sure I wasn't going to burn the forest down or have the fire department out there. So I was out there every hour. I had 5-gallon buckets, but the smell, the aroma coming from that burning rotted wood was so fantastic. It just stuck in my head. It was a beautiful thing. It was just, it's like if I could get that in a bottle, that was the dream. So it's not the species alone, but the whole progression, the decomposition of the wood, and used. Again, we do different things, and the original rye and the original single malt have applewood, cherrywood smoked malt, but only applewood and oakwood chips in the barrel. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that before this conversation?
I did not.
It's hard. It's hard to articulate so that people understand it, but that's what we do.
So the next question is sort of a historical question.
Wait a minute,
Because,
Phil, one more sip.
of course. So I know that Wasmund's the label bears your name.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why you switched to labeling your single malt as Copper Fox rather than continuing to put your name on the label?
Well, yeah, there is. It just we did a label redesign, and we paid a good amount of money to have a professional team out of Chicago do it, and we thought that ultimately the business might be sold or whatever, and I didn't know if people wanted my name. We thought that the stronger brand was Copper Fox, and for our limited marketing resources, we just wanted to put everything behind that. So It hasn't been a negative move. I don't know how positive it was. I mean, I liked having my name, but I didn't want the whole thing to be all about me.
Right. I can understand that. I was curious because I had, after I bought this bottle several years ago, I of course went looking for the same label because I was starting to run low and didn't want to run out. But now I know
Now you
that
know, but
I should just.
yeah, it's the same. It's Copper Fox, the original single malt. But and then we came up with the Peachwood.
Mhm.
You know, basically we were in the orchard getting applewood, and there's a big pile of trees that was peachwood, and we are like, wow, let's try that. And you know, this is what we do. So we burned it. It smelled great, and I said, well, we got to try that. And so this was kind of the same time. So what were we going to call the Peachwood, like Wasmund's Peachwood Edition, or you know, or some new brand, or whatever. So that's and we started the brand started expanding, and so it just that it's as simple as that. We just wanted to focus all our marketing dollars on the Copper Fox brand.
Makes sense. I want to take a quick step back to the sort of peat-like decomposing wood that you had burned. So I guess if you could comment on the difference. I know you never made that into whiskey per se. But well, I guess first of all, let's not bury the lead, or let's not beg the question. Do you try to decompose the wood before burning it to smoke the barley?
The short answer is we don't have to try. We have wood at various stages of seasoning, and
Okay.
And some of it is that. Some of it is that.
Okay.
So, cherry wood, after 3-4 years out, starts to get a little soft.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So do you feel like you accurately captured that the lovely smoke that you observed in the product, or are there differences? And if there are differences, are you happy with the differences?
We're always striving for perfection, but I'm pretty happy with the way the whiskey's coming out right now. But we're not. I'm not done trying new things and trying to get better.
That's a very good marketing answer, which probably has the benefit of being true.
So,
hey, are we up for the Peachwood yet? Or okay?
yes. And I have gone through the trouble of making sure that my Copper Fox Glencairn glass is available for tonight.
Oh, thank you.
I do not have one, so
Doug, I am very sad. We'll have to rectify that, but
I'll find a way. I appreciate the invitation out to Virginia. We'll make that happen at some point.
Yep.
So, approximately what year did you start releasing the Peachwood?
I think the Peachwood, the rye was 2008, and the Peachwood was probably 2010, something like that. We started the single malt. We had out in 2005. The thing is, we opened the distillery in January of 2005, and by August, we had a product that was out there. So it wasn't very old. We never bought anybody else's whiskey to market because we weren't that smart. But we've always made 100% of our own. So the whiskey was young, and it tasted young, but it was the oldest applewood aged whiskey on the planet. So it was interesting, and we were exploring it. It was not the quality of the batch 142, but it was it was fun, and it just kept on getting better with every batch and a little bit older. For the longest time, we had. I said, "Well, I'm never going to put anything out that's less than 4 months old." So we put that on the label and had it printed on the label. We had those bottles out. So even though the whiskey was maybe got to be 1 and 2 and 3 years old, but it still had that 4 month thing on. But finally, we started taking that off, and we put the actual age statement on there. So, but it was, yeah.
So on the topic of your younger whiskeys, Doug brought up the other day that you sent a whiskey aged for a short period of time on wood chips to be evaluated. I was just curious as to your experience with that.
Doug, what are you talking about?
I heard in another, I guess maybe I'll try to rephrase it because this is coming third hand. I heard in another interview that you were on in 2020, so quite a while ago,
Right.
that you had sent, or somebody had suggested that you should send away a sample to be analyzed chemically or sensorially by maybe the SWA, somebody else. And the conclusion that they reached about said sample was that they concluded that it was somewhere around 7-8 years old, when in actual fact it was quite a lot younger than that.
Right. No, that's the true story. Is that this was before I think we even. This was before we started the distillery, but I had been doing experiments with chips. So aging the whiskey. So. The idea was always to smoke, but the practical impediments to building a malt kiln and all of that were pretty severe. But we were aging whiskey, I was experimenting. I bought Everclear and cut it down to barrel proof, and did aging experiments in jars. And anyway, I got back from my stint in, my internship in Bowmore in Scotland. And I was introduced to a guy who I hired as a consulting engineer. His name was Harry Coburn. Harry was the former manager at Bowmore. And Harry was doing some consulting work for Forsyths. And I invited him over, and he helped me kind of check out some stills and some used equipment. And he and I were drinking some of my experiments, sampling them. And he says, "Oh, this is pretty good." And he said, "Do you mind if I send some off to the Scotch Whiskey Institute?" And I'm like, "No, that'd be great." So this is what we're talking about, is the story you heard. Is he sent it off, and it took a couple of weeks, but he heard back, and they said, "Oh, Mr. Coburn, we've determined that the sample that you've sent is between 7 and 8 years old." And I'm like, "How interesting," because I knew how I produced it, and it had never been in a barrel. So from that definitional standpoint, it was 0 on the age, but I had chipped it for like 6 weeks, and before it was sent off. So and they said, "Well, that's what we think." So it kind of determined that that they didn't comment on the quality of it, but to get extraction is not hard, and you can do it very quickly. But to get integration and quality is, another source. So I don't know what they were focusing on, but we liked it, and it certainly had, plenty of wood influence. So, from that time, I determined, or was going under the working hypothesis that there was a way to get there was a way to get the quality, and that it didn't have to take so long. And from a business plan, from a model of developing a workable business plan, that had a great appeal. It's not that I was trying to do something in 6 weeks, and even the what we do now. Typically the original whiskeys that we're putting out still takes 3 years, but what comes out in 3 years, I think, is the equivalent of that 7, 8 to 10-year-old. I don't know, but you guys you don't have to blow smoke in any part of my anatomy. You think, you think this stuff is all right? Let's try the original. Now let's go to the Peachwood and tell me what you think of that.
I like it. It has less of that sort of aggressive astringency and more of a softer, politer introduction to the nose and on the palate.
Well, just what do you think about the age? Does it taste just like a 3-year-old, or?
See, I've never thought about determining age from taste. I can tell when something tastes young, and it doesn't taste young. But I wouldn't be able to hazard a guess as to the age.
Right. So, and what batch is that?
I have BBC2.
Oh, the Peachwood. Okay.
Yeah.
The Peachwood. That's like both of the whiskeys that you have, not counting the Seelbach, are like 3 years. And probably a year and a half with chips, and then another year and a half in a barrel to just rest and integrate. And
okay, interesting. Yeah, so just for some context on my end, I first discovered smoky whiskey with Islay whiskey, and quickly determined that, for price reasons and just my general preference, I preferred Islay whiskey on the young side. Like somewhere in the middle, it's kind of uninteresting. Really old is just super expensive. It's very good, but it's super expensive. And then the young stuff is really characterful. And when I say young, I mean like 6 to 10 years old, something like that. I have a 6-year-old Bunnahabhain Staucha that's really that's one of the peated ones that's really characterful, and I think it would lose that with extra age in the barrel. Smoke develops in the barrel into something else, or I guess with time, esterification. I think saying time in the barrel in a particular climate is kind of reductionist, right? Talking about if the Scotch Whisky Institute was the one doing the analysis, they probably had all kinds of assumptions about what they were handed to begin with, right? Rather than assuming that it was based on Everclear, they probably assumed it was based on, some other kind of more traditional whiskey distillate. They probably assumed further that it was smoky, yes. So they probably assumed that it was peat smoke, right? And the character of peat smoke would be different from the character of peachwood smoke, right? So it's possible that they're observing the smoke quality and getting these fruity flavors, the fruity smoke quality out of it, and a gentle smoke, and saying that must be smoky distillate that has had time to form fruity esters, based on the assumption of starting from peated whiskey. That would be my assumption, that they made assumptions of that nature.
Maybe and I don't know, but the point is that this was before we malted, so this was not smoked at all. It was just the chips.
We have a sarcastic comment from the comments, or at least I think that it's sarcastic, that so many channels that taste whiskey focus on guessing age. That's actually very rare for us. It very rarely comes up, actually, because Phill and I, philosophically speaking, don't care that much about age. Everybody wants to guess age because it's like a fun thing. For us, if we're ever guessing age, it's probably to make the point that so many things contribute to maturity besides a number of years. So
A
we would
whiskey is
highlight
ready when it's ready.
exactly.
Doesn't
So we would
matter.
highlight age if it helps tell a story in a particular way, right? But
Well,
otherwise, it's not terribly important.
Well, good. But I brought it up because you brought up the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
You another story, so we can move on. I don't.
Yeah. No.
wanna-
I just, it's totally fine. I think it's interesting because it makes the point really well. That's exactly the reason I like to bring up age. People believe that whiskey made a certain way, aged a certain way, resembles whiskey that is older, made in the more traditional ways. And that's one of the ways that Copper Fox presents as being older than you would think if you take as the assumptions the mass of Scotch whiskey that's out there, right? A 3-year-old Scotch would not taste this mature.
So I'll say another story, and the Old Maker's Mark distiller Dave Pickrell, who's Dave was a great guy, but I remember at the American Distillers Institute, I'd been a couple of years into it, and I was at one of the meetings, and Dave was speaking on, I forget the overall subject, but he was like, chipping is, great. You can get extraction, but you can't get integration. And I'm like, oh, really? You can't, can you? Challenge accepted. But then, a couple of years later, Maker's 46 came out, and he was up there and he was saying, chipping is the wave of the future. So anyway.
Speaking of, the way of the future and innovation, with the way that American single malt whiskey is sort of blooming into the forefront of American distilling and gaining popularity both with, individuals in the industry and in the general public. How do you feel about the popularity of American single malt and the, sort of growing movement of distillers?
Well, just to back up in what I said earlier, we were one of the early ones, and hopefully we're one of the better ones. I think it's exciting to see a lot of people making single malts. I have been a little bit at odds with some of my friends in the industry because of the fact that we have from the beginning done two things. I mean, we've malted all of our own barley. We introduced different smokes because we thought they were interesting, and we've also aged our whiskey. So with the single malt industry, there's a question whether or not that our whiskey will be precluded from the definition of American single malt because we're using toasted wood chips in the barrels. And I think that's kind of a shame because when you think about American single malt, what's more American than the Copper Fox story? So people are calling themselves single malt that are buying malted barley from Scotland. Do I want to shut them out and say they're not American single malt? No, but don't shut me out because I'm carrying a consistent service. So that's a simple analysis, and any reasonable person would say that. But yet some people in the group are trying to say that you shouldn't be allowed to do chips. But regardless, we are at Copper Fox an original expression of creativity as it relates to whiskey in a bottle. We're the ones that before Copper Fox, there was no one malting barley with fruitwood smoke in the world. No one. the fruit wood happened to be indigenous to America and Virginia or whatever, applewood and cherry wood. That is the original whiskey. The fact that we use that in our maturation process, to me, is a natural extension, and we make original whiskey. You can love it or like it or not like it, but you can't argue that it is an original flavor, and it should be something that everyone should try. Whether or not you drink it or buy it on a regular basis, there's a lot of good whiskey out there, but does that answer your question?
Yes. And we're running a little bit short on time. We don't want to make you late for dinner. But before you go, we'd like to thank you again for taking time out of your day and out of your vacation to speak with us. And I wanted to bring up for the people listening at home, currently your Chestnut American whiskey is on sale through July 31st. And I really like your tagline on there. It's okay to go a little bit nuts. It's basically Christmas in July. Kudos to your marketing team.
Dad jokes are strong with this brand.
Oh my God.
And there is also I noticed on your website that there is let me find it again. The Captain's Club.
Oh, right.
So would you like to just really quick pitch the Captain's Club?
Well, yeah, but the Captain's Club is great. It's not great for people out of state because we have difficulty shipping stuff directly out of the distillery. But the Captain's Club is something we've experimented with whiskey over the years, and a lot of the experiments have resulted in 1 or 2 barrels of things. And as a way to, basically introduce the public or whatever, just a limited number of people that wanted to try some things that were really, really different. We started the Captain's Club, and we bottle the stuff, and everyone that joins the Captain's Club has to buy a bottle, and they have to come pick it up. And we usually have a party associated with it. So it's become a social thing and a way for people to try some really unusual whiskeys. So I think we have a Captain's Club release, which is an extra old rye. It just happens to be like a 9-year-old rye whiskey, and it's fantastic. But we've had some port beer, some port style beer barrel aged rye whiskey that was out there. We had a cognac single malt, apple brandy single malt. We had a barrel aged gin that came out incredible. It was kind of a root beer flavor. So, but just these one of barrels that we had floating around the warehouse, we just made part of the Captain's Club. And the Captain's Club toast is, it's, people would ask me, how do you toast your wood? And what I would say is, now's the time to get the seal bock out. Go ahead, pour it in the glass. You got it?
Sir.
You got
I'll
Phill?
mime another pour.
Phill, you got yours?
Yep.
Okay, so how do we toast our wood? Well, we pour the whiskey in the glass, we raise the glass in the air, and we say, to the wood. That's how we toast our wood. To the wood.
To the wood.
To the wood. Can we do this again sometime, guys?
Oh,
Of
we
course.
absolutely should. As you can see, we can easily fill an hour, and we'll do a lot more if you have the open-ended end time. I guess in. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, maybe Phil's going to come down to Williamsburg, and we'll take care of him. And you can see the fact that we really do malt our own barley, and it's kind of incredible. And I don't know. Hopefully you enjoyed the whiskey, but I certainly enjoyed meeting you guys.
Likewise.
It's been a pleasure, sure.
So, I hope everyone tries Copper Fox, and I hope everyone buys one of those freaking barrel-made pens and those bowls. I mean, come on. Those things are fabulous. Anyway.
I'll bring one down for you when I
All
come
right.
to visit.
All right. Excellent. Any other questions, guys? What do you got?
Well,
I think
I don't want to get too deep into the gas chromatograph thing, but I would have liked to ask you about ppm in the barley if we had time, if you do that kind of analysis. If there's a short answer to that, feel free. Otherwise, I've got a little fanboying that I'd like to do before you sign off.
So yeah, the ppm, we don't do the analysis, but I would say it's probably 17 to 20. So
Okay.
light. It's not meant to be a smoke bomb.
Right. Light but respectable.
Right.
It's present for sure. Yeah. Nice. Okay. So there's your answer to the probably no gas chromatograph level, but the phenol parts per million, they've done that analysis, or at least they have a guess. So I hope that answers the question. So as for my own fanboying, when I first got into American Single Malt, it was coming from the realm of Scotch, and I had tried McCarthy's, which is very much like a smoky Scotch, and almost every other American single malt that I had experienced was not smoky at all, or was using Scotch peat. So yours was the first American single malt I encountered that was using an alternative source of smoke, and that fascinated me to no end. And I essentially, because of discovering Copper Fox, opened up a huge research project into figuring out who in America is using other sources of smoke. And it just feels really important to the identity of American single malt whiskey.
I know
to have
who
that.
is. So who is?
So there are alternative sources of peat. There's some in Maine, North Dakota, and the Skagit Valley. So there's that. So that's still peat, but at least it's not Scottish peat.
Okay.
Whiskey Del Bach and Santa Fe Spirits are using mesquite smoke.
We malted barley for Santa Fe long ago with mesquite. They would send us mesquite and we smoked it. But yeah, but they went to a different source after us for a couple of years.
So that's a nice connection there.
Yeah.
Maybe we
Okay.
should, we've had a little trouble getting in touch with Santa Fe Spirits so far. So maybe we could use a recommendation or an introduction.
Okay. And who else?
So let's see. Andalusia uses mesquite smoke and that North Dakota peat that I mentioned before, and some other hardwoods, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't have the fact sheet handy. They do a lot with alternative smokes there, and they also import peat from Scotland and Ireland, if I'm not mistaken. So they get smoke from a lot of different sources. Balcones uses Texas scrub oak to smoke the brimstone expression, which is not a single malt, but it is a smoked whiskey nonetheless. In terms of other hardwood smoke, I'm not aware of many.
Corsair was doing something.
Who was that?
Corsair?
Yes.
Corsair.
Corsair has done some fruitwood smoke, some peat, and a triple smoked that is 3 different sources of smoke.
And Hill Rock was there. They were malting their own barley, but I don't know if they were smoking it. I think maybe not.
I'm not sure. I'll have to do some research and get back to you on that.
So I've heard. I tried to get to see their facility, but it just didn't work out on my trip up there. I don't know if they're open, but just so you know, Copper Fox, we have 2 locations. We don't malt so much. We still malt in Sperryville, the original spot, but not as frequently. It's just gotten to be a lot more efficient in Williamsburg. So, but we do tours 7 days a week at both distilleries. We are open. And that's why you were saying, so we're an open book to a lot of people. So I don't know how many distillers came to see us, but we have never denied showing people what we do and the fact that we do it all. I'm not saying we're perfect, but we're transparent, and I don't know what else I can say except for I consider it to be a great honor to bring spirit into people's lives, into the marketplace, and I hope we're worthy of it. And I hope you enjoy our stuff.
Yep. I'll show a couple
I
of comments
certainly
that
do.
were on topic here real quick. So the Whiskey Shaman says that post oak, applewood, and mesquite used by Andalusia. Sugar Kitty says Texas is using mesquite smoke. We've got a connection to Del Bach, but just so you know, we've interviewed Mark Vierthaler on our channel as well. You can find that on the live tab. Since it's on topic, I'll put a link to that in the description as well. David asks, what about Copperworks? So Copperworks uses a limited amount of Pacific Northwest peat and Scottish peat, but no other sources of smoke that I'm aware of.
So, I mean, we're it in the world for fruitwood. And
Yeah.
I was at one of the ACSA, I guess, up in Minneapolis, and I think there was someone up there. They may have been aging with applewood, or they've been smoking with applewood, but I don't know. But we have these two things: the smoke on the malt, and then the wood in the barrel. And to me, they're integrated, which is why I have my mild disagreement with the definition of American single malt. It's what we do. And we're the original. This is what we've been doing since 2005. No one was doing any of this before us. Nobody.
Yep.
So, and the fact that we use a smoky malt as a component of our rye whiskey and age our rye with toasted applewood in the used bourbon barrels, it's transparent. It's what we do. It's what we've always said we've done. And it's out there for anyone to see. Anyone that wants to come to the distillery can see it 7 days a week. We're proud of it. I hope you taste it. The rye is amazing. The single malt is, still fantastic. But once again, guys, if you need me back on to the wood, I'm going to take the kids out to dinner, and you guys have been very, very pleasant to get to know.
Thank you, sir.
One last quick rapid fire question, if I could. On the note of dad jokes, I've heard you mention before that you were trying to get peach in the Middle East. Since 2020, have you achieved peach in the Middle East?
Doug, all we're saying is give peach a chance.
Sounds good to me. Well, to the wood.
All we are saying is give peach a chance. All right.
To the wood, and until next time, we'll see you in the lodge. Cheers, and good night, everybody.
Peach in the Middle East in our lifetime. Yeah.